Ready for the next one? Have you ever been locked out of somewhere? Out of your room in your house maybe, or your own house maybe even, or an office? Yeah. When Miranda was a baby, we lived here close to Arborg. And I had gone to Arborg, my oldest two, I had left somewhere, and I parked the car, I went in to do my business. I think it was a hairdresser, I don't remember, but then I came back it was a pickup truck, and I opened the door on the passenger side. I put her seat in, the blanket was still over, it was cold, and started the truck from that side because it was cold. Then I closed the door and went to the other side, and everything was locked. And she was in there, in her seat, and I didn't know what to do now. I didn't have a key to get in the truck, but so what I did is, you don't leave a child in the car and go into a business somewhere, right? But I did. I did not know what to do, so I walked in and told them, and then they called a locksmith for me. So I could see she was in there waving her arms and screaming, and I had to just stand on the outside and look in. I could do nothing. I needed a key. I needed a key to get in. I think it was only about 20 minutes, and then I got help. But yes, I needed a key. So imagine you buy yourself a house, you get the key, you walk into the house, and it's exciting, right? You walk around the house. You had a look before, but you walk around the house and you realize that all these rooms need a key. You only got one key for the front door, and these rooms need a key. How are you going to get in? You will need a key to get into all of those doors. A woman asked me some time ago, she said, can you do a topic on how to have a good life? How can I just have a good life? And as I was preparing this session, I had taken a few notes when Roberta called me 2 weeks ago, not quite 2 weeks ago, right? I had taken a few notes, but that was the day that I was going to prepare this session for a recording. So then when she called me, I thought, okay, I am going to prepare this session for the ladies in Arborg. And so I was thinking, what keys do we need to have a good life? Now, I mentioned quite a few. I'm a type of person that very much goes by point. Well, you need this, and this, and then you'll be fine. As I said during the last session, it's not always just those keys, but there are some keys that I have, the lessons that I told you about in the last session, and now I'm going to give you some keys how to get into those doors. If you want a good life in that new home that you bought, you will want to use all the rooms. You don't want to leave those doors locked. You need keys to get into those doors. And even if you are, if you have given your life to Christ, you're a Christian, you live dedicated to Him, but there are still so many people that, yes, they know they're saved, they're going to go to heaven when they die, but how do you live a good life here? So this house that I was telling you about, that is your salvation. You have been saved, you are a Christian, but why still sometimes do we feel like we don't live a good life? What do you do so that you can live a good life? What is a good life was my question then when she said, can you teach us how to live a good life, how to have a good life, how to be able to enjoy life? And I thought, well, what do you mean by a good life? Like if I would ask somebody here, Jesse, what is a good life? Wow, you know what? Some people would have given me a whole different answer, but I can so much agree with that because I remember a time when I went through a stage of huge anxiety. I couldn't eat anymore, and I was just, and then sometimes when I would lay down on the recliner at home, and all of a sudden my whole body just kind of went into a state of peace. Like I felt like it was tangible in my flesh, in my body. And I just felt like so thankful. I don't think I've ever felt so thankful for peace. So I can relate to that. What about you, Maria? What's a good life? Having Jesus in your life. There you go. So those are some good answers. So a good life is not necessarily big vacations or obedient children or a mansion to live in, or even a healthy body. All those things we are thankful for. But what is a good life? How can you live a good life when you don't necessarily have a lot of money, or when you don't have a husband which you would have wished for a long time? What is a good life? You know, some people don't understand how I can enjoy my life. And I don't think lately so much, but I remember some years ago, I was somewhere at a party and I was talking to someone, and I could feel she sympathized with me. She felt sorry for me, and she was asking questions. And I said, but I enjoy my life. Like, I have a future. I see a bright future. And then she said, really? What do you see? And I just realized that some people looking from the side, they don't see that I can enjoy my life if I don't have a husband. And I can relate to that because I used to be there. When I was still married, I remember one friend came over one time and we were sitting Sunday afternoon visiting, and she had been separated for a while, and it seemed like she was just so happy. And I just could not imagine, how can life be fulfilled and happy without a husband? I just couldn't relate to that. And I realize now that having a good life doesn't have to do with whether you have a good marriage or not. There are other things that you will need to enjoy your life and to have a good life. So the mending and the healing that I talked about in the first session, that is definitely something we need as we come out of our brokenness, right? But then how are you going to enjoy life? So it won't be just mediocre or boring or just barely getting by, or mediocre, like Roberta also mentioned. Because I enjoy my life. I love what I do. I love to come here, see you ladies like this. I love my children. I have a good house. If you would come there, you would see it's a small house, but it's cozy. It's perfect for us. And so, but like I said, I could live in that perfect house and not have a good life. I could have perfect children and not have a good life. So what does it take to have a good life? Because I have noticed there are people that are happily married. They have a very nice house, a future income. They have children, but yet they seem to not enjoy their life. So what is it? Why don't they enjoy their life? So the keys that I want to give to you, I want to clarify again. I am taking it that you already know Jesus, because that is definitely the first key. And the healing that I talked about in the last session, Jesus is the answer. But if we just tell everybody Jesus is the answer, they're still going to be stuck. Because, yeah, I already know Jesus, but what do I, what do I need to do to make wise choices so that things can get good? Jesus is the answer. But then from there, how can you enjoy life? There are so many ladies that don't enjoy life, but they do know Jesus. So key number one that I have found, and I'm just going to give you 3 keys. The key number one is purpose. If you have purpose in life, then that is a huge key to enjoying life. So this is one of those rooms in that house that you bought, where if you will take the key of purpose, you will be able to open that door and you will be able to get in there. And that will help you to be able to enjoy your life. Ken Davis told me, well, I told you that I had been in Nashville. I was at the SCORE speakers training where Ken Davis was teaching. And one morning we had breakfast with him, and then he told us about, when I say us, my brother Denver joined me there and his daughter. So there was 3 of us going through that training. That was a wonderful time with my brother there in Nashville, Tennessee. We were there and we had breakfast with Ken Davis one morning, and he said, he was talking about purpose or goals and purpose kind of together. And then he said he had 2 comedian friends Some of you know Ken Davis is a Christian comedian. And he said he had two comedian friends who had taken their own life. And he said, and then he said, and I can understand why. Because he said one of these friends had a goal, had a huge goal in life, and he had reached that goal. But where do I go now? Like he had come to the place where he wanted to be, but he had no future goals. And he said there has to be a purpose higher than that goal. And then he was telling me about the other friend who had also taken his life. And he said, this friend had said, I don't hear them laugh anymore. He was still doing his comedian work. He was doing his work. People were laughing, but he said, I don't hear them laugh anymore. And Ken Davis said, I know what he means. He said, it didn't fulfill him. There was something empty that he was hoping the people would fulfill. And he took his own life as well. There was no purpose big enough. So then I looked at Ken Davis and I asked him, what's your purpose? What's your goal? And then he looked at me and he said, my goal? He said, my goal is to make people happy and give them hope. And then I thought, okay, that's not a goal that's going to run out. If you have that goal lasts all the way till you're going to be in heaven. Because to make people happy and to give them hope, that is something you can keep doing. That's not a goal that runs out, right? So there must be purpose. You must have a reason to live. There are some reasons, some purpose that all of us have. It's the same one, right? We want to honor God, we want to glorify Him, but we each have our own specific things that God has called us to do. And so if you can find that, that is so helpful, it gives you purpose, for lack of a better word. When you know what God has called you to do, when you know what your gifts are that He wants you to, and you know what, you are responsible to use those gifts. God didn't give you gifts for you to decide, well, maybe I'll do it. I like to do it, but I don't need to because I'm busy with the kids. Or no, if God has given you the gifts, you are responsible to use those gifts, whether that's painting or carpentry or whatever it is that you love doing. If God has given you a gift, you are responsible. And you know what? When you do that, when you realize you're responsible to take those gifts and make something better out of them and to grow that skill, then all of a sudden it gives you permission. Because I think a lot of you have gifts and talents and abilities that you know not everybody has, and you love doing it, but you keep pushing it aside because this is more important. Who knows what I'm talking about? Exactly. I used to love sewing, and I remember thinking, yeah, I would love to sew. But you know what? No, the dishes need to be done. No, the children need to be taught. No, this. But when you start realizing that your gift is something God has given you and He wants you to use it, whether it is for something big or whether it is just for you to enjoy. For you to enjoy. If that is something that refreshes you and replenishes you when you do that, remember, that's something God has given you. So do it. We know of some people like Christine Caine. She has a huge goal in life to free people from slavery, right? John Maxwell teaches on leadership. What about you? What do you do? See, I don't believe necessarily that all of us now have to become great big leaders and famous in the whole world like John Maxwell and Christine Caine maybe are, but I do believe that God has given you gifts that He wants you to do. And so take that permission and start doing something. Maybe you want to start with 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week or something, but allow yourself to enjoy doing what God has given you, the gifts God has given you to do that you love to do. For me, the three things that are important to me in life that I love doing and that I am doing is to encourage women, the way I'm doing here today, to do accounting. I never knew that I was an accountant, but I've started to enjoy it. I like numbers. And my children. Those three things, that is what I focus on. If somebody would ask me all of a sudden if I would like to have a part-time job babysitting, and they would pay me $50 an hour, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it because that's just not what I want to do. It's not part of what God has called me to do. Although I do want to babysit children, especially when my grandchildren come along. But but that's a different story. So that is one of the keys, to find purpose. Find purpose in life. And you know, some of you may say, well, I have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about or what my purpose is. Well, like I said, it doesn't have to be something huge like what I'm doing here or things like that, but it can be, but you need to find a reason. Because if God put you here on earth only to raise your children, then you can die as soon as they're all out of the house. Why would you still be here? No, God has more for you. Yes, I am a big believer in when we are raising children, that is our priority. I really believe that. I don't believe that we should prioritize other things over our children. I believe, first of all, we need to be faithful with what God has given us. But you need to find a purpose that is going to outlast your whole life so that you don't find no meaning in life. That is key number one. Key number two, progress. Progress, grow. Keep getting better, keep growing. I was talking here to Nettie before, and we were talking about different things, and I said, yeah, we just keep growing. We just keep learning and growing. There's never a time when we can say, okay, good, now I know it all. We keep growing. 2 Peter 3, verse 18 says, grow in grace and in the knowledge of Jesus. So what does it mean to grow in grace? Doesn't God just give us all the grace that we need? No, we can actually grow in grace and in knowledge. So the one thing where I found, we can grow in grace by getting to know God more. Because it's not that now God has more grace available, but we grow to understand more of him, and we are all of a sudden, we accept, we learn to live with more grace and take more of God's grace that he already has available for us. So while I was in Nashville, I think I had just given Roberta my answer. And then I went to have breakfast. It was right there. Denver and his daughter had already left. And so I had quite a few hours to spend in the airport. And so I had breakfast. Just took my time there. I think I sat there for 2 hours having my devotions early morning. We got to the airport at about 5. And so I was having breakfast and my devotions and reading a book. And when I was done, after a few hours, I paid and took my suitcase and thought, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. So I just leisurely went for a walk in the airport. And I think I had been walking probably for about 45 minutes, and I thought, oh, I'm going to check. There was a little gift shop. I like to bring my children a gift when I come home. Usually it's a pen. So I was looking for pens that would have Nashville on them so that they could see where I had been. So I walked in and looked around. I found some pens. I wasn't quite satisfied, so I walked out of the store, walked around a little bit more. So then I came back and decided, yeah, I'm going to get those pens. So I got them and looked in my purse, and my wallet wasn't there. And everything is in my wallet. I have since now taken some things out that somebody said, you should never have your social insurance number in your wallet. I'm 46 years old, I should have known that, but I had everything in my wallet. And so then I thought, where could that be? Well, the only place I had taken out my wallet was at this restaurant where I had had breakfast. So then the lady that was helping me, she said, do you have a receipt? I can quickly call them up. But there was no phone number on the receipts. So then I walked back to the airport, and I walked a little bit faster than what I had walked to the store. But while I was walking, I thought, why am I not more worried? Why am I so calm? Yeah, I was thinking a little bit, will it still be there? Or will somebody have taken it? But I was thinking, and I thought, that's grace. I have grown in grace since many years ago. I have learned to trust God in much more deeper level than what I used to, because I knew, and my thoughts went there. I thought, okay, what if the wallet is nowhere to be found? Okay, well, then I would have to call the bank. I would have to call the credit card company. Those things went through my mind, but I felt like that can all be done. And I thought, I can still get home because I've paid for my tickets. I can go. I don't have to eat. I won't starve if I don't eat till I'm home. So that is one of the ways where you can grow in grace, by getting to know God and learning to trust him and to realize he is going to take us through. He has been faithful before, and he will do it again. Even this week, one of my daughters was struggling a bit, and she was talking to me, and I was telling her, it will be okay. You will be fine. You will come out of this again. And then she said, how do you know? And I just straight up told her, because God has helped you before, and he will again. And so grow in the grace, progress, keep moving forward. That is one of the things when we live a stale life and we don't keep growing and moving forward and growing in grace and in knowledge. See, sometimes we want wisdom, but how can God give us wisdom if we have no knowledge? Sometimes we have to go out and actually buy a book. How do I raise a 5-year-old? Or we have to actually buy a book. How do I manage my finances? And then when we get knowledge and we pray for wisdom, then God can give us wisdom, and we can live a good life. I read a lot of books. Oh, I just thought maybe I shouldn't say that because some of you might be reading more. But my goal used to be 1 book per month, so 12 per year. And now it's usually 24 per year by the time the year's up. But I just love learning. We gotta keep growing, keep making progress. Why would you want to be at the same place where you're at now in 20 years? Do you still want to live at the same place? Maybe you do. I might. Do you still want to have the same income? Do you still want to have the exact same friends? Do you still want to always go to the same place for vacation? Or do you want to keep growing? Do you want to keep getting better? Do you want your income to keep going up? Keep making progress. Your relationship with God too. How was your relationship with God a year ago? Have you grown? Have you grown in grace? Another thing I like to do is go to seminars, just like I did 2 weeks ago. Learn a little bit more about public speaking. How can I speak to make things clear so that my audience will understand? And that not just that they will understand, but that they will go home and their lives will change. Do you need knowledge? That's a choice you can make then to grow and to make progress. Key number 3 is to prioritize. And I touched on this a little bit in the last session. What is more important? What is more important, helping others or helping yourself first? When you're in an airplane, you all know they always say, put the mask on you first in case of emergency. You gotta prioritize. You need to prioritize. And if you do that, life can be so good. Like this lady that I mentioned, she said her house was such a mess, but she wanted to help others. But you know what? If she would make sure that her and her kids every evening will do the dishes and will tidy the floor, then she would have just loved to the next day go and help her friend and love to come back home. See, life can become so good when we prioritize. What is the most important? Our homes, I just have such firm belief our homes should be our priority. And you know what? If we have our homes in order, whether it be organizing and having things cleaned up, or whether it be raising our children and teaching them to be able to be by themselves sometimes when mom goes out, whatever it is, but I so truly believe home is first. In fact, in 1 Timothy 3, it talks about how to choose bishops and deacons, it said there. And in both cases, it says, like for bishops, it says, if he can't take care of his own home, how can he take care of God's people, of the church? And then for the deacons, it says, they need to rule their house well. So if deacons and bishops are supposed to do that, are we Mom's not supposed to do that either. Almost all of the qualifications that it talks about bishops and deacons, there are qualifications you and I should have too. So let's make sure we prioritize. It's not selfish to take care of yourself first. And I know we moms are so much so that we take care of our children, we take care of our husbands, we take care of our house, but we don't take care of ourselves. When's the last time you allowed yourself just to rest? Well, the children want to do this or that. I should take them. Okay, then that evening that you had wanted to rest, now you're taking the kids out again to wherever they want to go. But you are allowed and you should take care of yourself. I think it can get overboard. I do believe that there are some moms who just always need a break. My last break was 2 weeks ago. I just need a break from the kids, okay? Well, I think we can be extreme in that, but I believe it would be so good for every mom to have at least an hour a day where you're just be able to be quiet by yourself. And that can be hard when there's little babies and sometimes they're sick. I'm not saying that this is a rule, that this is what you have to do. You can go out for a day sometime, train your children, raise your children in such a way, even little ones, that they can be away for a day sometimes or for a weekend. And you all are probably much better at this than I was when my kids were little, but that is one of the things where you need to prioritize. I always bought vitamins for the kids, and this child needs this child needs that. And then the bill was so big already. No, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I don't have to buy them for myself. Take care of yourself. Prioritize. So when we take these 3 keys, key number 1, purpose, number 2, progress, and number 3, prioritize. Those 3 things can help you so much to be able to enjoy life. Because, I don't know, some people say I work better in a mess, but I don't know, is that really true? Maybe. I know there's different personalities, because for one person, an organized house looks different than for another person. I was visiting a friend when we lived in Mexico, our neighbors. I just went over for a little visit, and I walked into her kitchen and her dining room and kitchen area, and there was nothing in sight. There was a table and chairs, all neatly set up. In the kitchen, I could not see one single thing that there was somebody living in that house. Like she had cleaned up. Every morning, I think she cleaned up. So there was not a knife on the countertop. There was not a coffee maker. There was no appliance. It looked like it was an empty house. That to me, that was for her. If that's how she organizes and she needs that, that's not how I organize. When you come into my kitchen, you'll see that life is going on. There's a coffee maker. There's a toaster. There are some things set out. There's recipe books in the corner. So I'm not trying to lay down the law of what is organized for you and what is not. But it needs to be so that you can enjoy life. It needs to be so that you don't always have to think of, I should do this, I should do this. I've actually made a rule in my life. When I say I should, then I should. If I say I should, then I do. I need to stop saying I should if I don't want to do it. So if you've thought of one drawer in your room now while I was talking here, then go home and do it. Don't keep saying, I should. No, if you want your house the way it is now, then don't say I should. Then just leave it the way it is. Anyways, how can I have a good life? These are 3 keys that'll help you to enjoy your life. I am open for questions now. Does anybody have a question? Anything regarding the last session, regarding this session? I'm not promising I'll be able to answer all the questions, but I still have 15 minutes left. So, yes? Oh, thank you. You know what? I did this recording the other day, and later I thought, I don't think I gave them the answer. What happened? And the same I did now. Yes. So then I walked back, and I walked into that restaurant. It was quite a way back. And when I walked in the door, I already looked. I was sitting right way in the corner, and the wallet was right on the table. And the people that were sitting at the other table when I was there, they had 2 little kids, and they were still sitting there. So I just kind of thought, I'll quietly go and pick it up. And then they piped up and they said, oh, thank God, we were hoping you would come back. So they had been watching my wallet there for me. Yeah, everything was in it. It was all good. Thank you for asking. I'll have to do an edit of my video because I know the answer is not in there and people will wonder. So, yeah, I did find it. Anything else? I must have been pretty clear. Any question. It can be a personal question. It can be a question about organizing or money or... How do I choose the 24 books I read a year? This year, I have just been, when you read a book, then very often within that book, there's a recommendation. Like maybe he's going to say, when I read this book by such and such an author, and if it sounds good to me, then this year I walked to the laptop right away and order it on Amazon. So I have right now a stack of books, but my books don't go on my shelf until I've read them. So if you come to my house and you see books on my shelf, they're read. But another year, one year I remember, it's been quite a few years ago, where I really felt like I needed to learn more about finances. That year, I think in December already or November, I picked out a lot of books for that year on finances, because that year I wanted to focus on that. So I ordered a whole bunch of books that were on finances. So it's different, but yeah, I like reading. Sometimes I don't know if I like it too much, but somebody had a question here. Yeah? Regrets. I used to say I have no regrets because I did the best I knew, even though my marriage fell apart. But I thought I was a good wife. I really learned and did my best to be who I thought I was supposed to be. So therefore, I don't have regrets, although now I can so see where I have failed. But I don't need to regret because I did the best I knew. But there are some things now where I have lately said I regret. And that has to do with, and I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but the one area where I have now lately just felt like I almost cringe, or I just feel like, oh no, why did I do that? That's in the area of raising my children. And that had to do with, especially one of my oldest daughter, when she was going to get married, she was dating, and I was filled with so much mistrust. And I could say, yeah, well, and people told me, well, what you had been through, you had trusted your husband and he wasn't trustworthy, so now how can you trust? I know, but I still don't want to make an excuse. And so I gave her such a hard time. And then when I would think about it, I would think, but why in the world would I think she would do anything like that? Because she has always chosen wisely in life. Why do I keep making her feel like I mistrust? So that is something but I've talked to her about it, and she said, she understand. We're in an understanding now. It was a hard time, so that was a bit of a regret. The other day when Miranda's getting married end of the month, her fiance's name is Dawson. They were over, he was over, and they were cooking, I think, in the kitchen. And then we were talking something about back when my oldest daughter was dating, and I said, and I just kind of made a quick remark. I said, oh yeah, that was when I was still scared of boys. And then Dawson just looked up, and he wasn't sure because he was going to be now my future son-in-law. And And then I could tell I needed to explain a little bit. So then I did. And then he just right away told me, but you have to give yourself some grace, he said. You were the mom and the dad. And it's understandable that you would have felt that way. So people always quickly make me feel better when I say something like that. But I still wish I hadn't hurt people so much. So I don't, if you're asking how to be able to overcome regret, I would very highly recommend finding someone who you can talk to. Like for me, it was a professional counselor. But you also have to find the right fit. Some people right away close their doors when I say go see a counselor because it doesn't always work out well for some people. Even the ones that I have recommended, they sometimes come back and say, no, that doesn't work for me. She's not a fit for me. So you need to find a counselor that works for you, that works, that clicks with you, like that you can connect with. But those things would have helped me. Because she would very often, when I would mention maybe regrets or something that I was struggling with, she would help me to think right, that I could understand, oh, yeah, if I think of it that way. So that would be something that I would recommend because it's too hard. It's so hard to live in something like that. Kind of the same as I've told the story of when I realized that I could not live in unforgiveness. When I had talked to a lady I had met at my church. I hadn't met her before, and I don't think I've met her since, but she was telling me about the separation between her and her husband, and that was the first year my husband and I had separated. And she was telling me about, she was still talking so revengefully about her husband. And so then eventually I asked her, so when did this happen? Because I felt what she felt. I felt those feelings that are gnawing here sometimes, and the anger sometimes, the bitterness, sometimes the sadness, all that. And then she said, it happened 10 years ago. And I thought, no, I cannot live like this 10 years. I cannot in 10 years still have those feelings. Because that's too hard. And I would say for any of you, if there's regret in your life or unforgiveness or something that riles up your heart whenever you think about it, do something about it. It's not worth living your life like that. It's not worth it. It's too hard. That peace that Jesse was saying, that is worth so much to have that peace on the inside. Anything else? Yes.
Can you talk about how do you find the balance in prioritizing yourself, but then not becoming selfish, or how you mentioned making sure you're almost before you go help others, making sure you're not always saying no.
I don't know if you all heard. She asked, how do you balance between not becoming selfish when you prioritize and instead of going and helping someone that you will end up always saying no? Yeah, I think there's a balance. And my house hasn't always been cleaned up when I go out and help others. It's not that I think you should get legalistic about this. But what comes to my mind right now, I think would be, if there's been something on your mind that, oh, I should do that someday. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that. Then do it. And if somebody asks you for help, and you right away remember, but I've had this on my mind so long, then maybe you should say no and go home and do it. Not say no and then go and watch a movie. You know what I mean? So some of these things, I don't have really a specific answer for you, but I have found so often when I think it's just my mind, but if it keeps coming up again and again, Holy Spirit speaks like that. He may be the one letting you know what, that drawer, that kind of doesn't look the way it should, then just go do it. But I don't know if there's a specific answer to balance. Do you have an answer for that? Darlene or Roberta or anybody? You have been busy ladies too.
I think also a big part is for myself is to learn to know yourself and what you can have
So she was saying, get to know yourself. Get to know yourself, how much you can do. And I agree with that because if you, like some women, I've sometimes thought, how in the world can you do everything you're doing? And she's fine. I remember one friend I had, she said, my goal is, she was earning a living sewing. And she said, my goal is to be in that sewing room 8 hours a day. And she had 3 little kids. And I thought, what? I could never have done that. Like, I had no career besides raising my children when they were this little. And I don't know what I would have done if I had to do that. So I agree with that. Get to know yourself. But some women can do more than others. And maybe it's not more in a sense, but different, I guess. So that's a very valid point. Get to know yourself. All right, Roberta, it's your turn.
Thank you so much. Can we give a round of applause for Gladys? Thank you. Well,